Hey everyone, this is Bridget, and I am with the awesome Ken Rohla. Hey, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure, Bridget.
And Ken is the president and founder of Fresh and Alive. He is a health educator from Florida, specializing in rejuvenative and cellular regeneration, using raw and sprouted vegetarian foods, herbs, plant-based supplements, detoxification. He is just a cutting-edge researcher, pioneer of all things healthy and natural, but then he also integrates this amazing technological and amazing things as an experimenter into integrating health, technology, changing the world. So he's just doing amazing things, and I got to hear him speak at the Sedona Raw Food Festival, and it was amazing just seeing all of the technology and the science behind all the things I energetically experience. So I'm really excited to have you on to talk about all these different things and put it together for us.
No, my pleasure.
It's amazing.
So where do we start?
Well, I wanted to start with kind of like how you got onto all of this. Where did this begin for you? Because now you're way down the line, just like an amazing, pretty much raw foodist, detoxing all the things of the modern world. And where did this come about for you?
Well, it's a long and winding road, but early in my childhood, I had a lot of experiences that I thought were normal that everybody had. It turns out were not experienced by most people. I had a lot of really unusual dreams and altered dream states and things like that. Had what now I look back on, which I believe was probably some kind of extraterrestrial encounters, but they were couched in imagery so I wouldn't be afraid. But I was given a lot of information from a very early age, and through the dream state and downloads and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so it gave me a different perspective on life, and it just always, boggled my mind how people couldn't see what was really going on this planet.
Yeah.
So it started early in that way, but then also just with health, I was born sick. My dad was not the healthiest person, neither my mom, so we didn't have the best diet growing up. And so, I was born with genetic strengths and weaknesses, as everybody is. And so by the time I got my early 30s, it was affecting me. I had severe hypoglycemia. I was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, depending on how I ate and how I slept. And so I had to figure out, what all this was. Now, you have to understand, at that time I was working in the medical system as well, so everybody around me is telling me, that I need pharmaceuticals or, something that the medical system had, which didn't work. And so ultimately I wound up through a long process of discovering healing with living foods and detoxification with herbs and natural supplements and things like that. And so I spent a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of years seeing what really worked, what didn't, and what worked well. And then, I just started sharing it with people, and eventually wound up becoming my job. And because of my background in engineering by that point, in electrical engineering, I'd always had a very keen interest in quantum physics and just understanding the nature of things. And so in natural health, I saw things because of my background that other people weren't seeing. And it allowed me to kind of put together a bigger picture of things. And then, of course, I've been very guided. I can't take credit for it. I've been guided in various ways from people and non-human beings. And so there's a lot that's gone into the mix.
Tell us about that a little bit, because you said that some inspiration has come through this reptilian encounter that you had. Is that right?
Yeah. I had been having a lot of unusual experiences that started out, well, actually it really started in my 20s when I was in college, and I was given the book Seth Speaks, which was this channeled material. And it was really fascinating information, and here in writing was all of this stuff that I had believed myself, but had never had any outside validation of anywhere else. So, I read the Seth books, and I start thinking, well, if this lady is channeling this entity somewhere else, I wonder if some of these far out ideas and information that's coming to me is coming from somewhere else. So I started communicating to these voices in my head, if you want to call it that. It was really my own internal voice. I wouldn't say it was like these third-party voices coming and talking to me. It was just my own internal voice.
Yeah.
But I started speaking to it as if it was a third party and saying, who are you? And particularly when I'd be, it's like there were certain places that were just so non sequitur with getting a download. Like where I worked in the corporate world, there was this restroom in the basement that for some reason was like this vortex for getting downloads. And I'd be, doing my business and all of a sudden like getting all these ideas and flashes of information and pictures and things. So I started talking to it as if it was a third party, and ultimately they identified themselves as extraterrestrials. And so then I said, well, if I'm not just crazy and this is all in my head, then I have to meet you physically. And so for a few years they refused because they said it would thwart the work that they wanted to do with me, because human DNA had been programmed to fear these what turned out to be reptilian ETs. Mm-hmm. And they didn't want to traumatize me. And so they resisted for a few years, but I kept pressing and kept pressing. And so ultimately I did wind up encountering them in the physical in North Carolina in a very special power place. And I had a witness with me so that I would know that it wasn't just all in my head and I wasn't crazy. And so, yeah, it was quite amazing. 3 large reptilians, about the size, 12 foot for the small one, 18 feet for the large one. They had dark olive drab skin, kind of like army green. They had scales all over. They didn't have any genitals to speak of that you could really see. They were, kind of a bulge, but not any genitals. Kind of like reptiles here on Earth. They had claws for fingernails. Not really huge ones, but they had little claws. They looked so stereotypical Hollywood. I thought somebody was messing with me at first because I'm, looking at this, trying to grok this. I was meditating with this guy, and we had our feet dangling in this spring that had been dug out. And spring water is high in monoatomic elements, which can create superconductivity in the body, which will enhance meditation and healing and all sorts of stuff. So without any real knowledge of this, we just happened to be sitting there with our legs dangling in Ormus water, meditating when this encounter occurred. And so, we both spent a couple minutes trying to grok this. And when I realized it was real, I became terrified. And I said, let's get the hell out of here. And we ran back to the house on the property. It was on this big farm. Uh-huh. And we got back to the house where there was a party going on. And neither one of us talked about it because we didn't want people to think we were crazy. And we weren't even sure what the heck we really experienced at that point.
Right.
And then later that evening, as I was going to bed, these reptilians came in telepathically and started communicating with me and told me, we told you you'd be afraid. And they were absolutely right.
Wow.
And for a few years after that, I was terrified that I was going to be abducted.
Right.
But ultimately, I got over it and had to integrate it into my worldview. And since then, I've, had many, many encounters with them and a few other types of ETs or interdimensionals. And so I've seen a lot, and I've gotten a lot of information and guidance from them as well. And I've also had like third-party people like psychics come up to me and tell me, just without me soliciting them,
yeah,
telling me about these beings working with me. So it's been an interesting ride.
Wow, right? I mean, even when I heard you speaking, it was like, okay, of course, like a person can understand and like know all this and bring this through, but there's way more, like the big picture that you had coming through and all like the science, everything behind it. It was like, wow, there's something more assisting you. I mean, I could feel it when I was hearing you speak.
Well, the truth is that there are millions of people on this planet, scientists, inventors, artists, musicians, all kinds of people. Yes. In every walk of life that are having these kinds of encounters, and most of them don't talk about it because you don't get rewarded for talking about this stuff. You get punished in every way you can imagine. People think you're crazy. People don't want to do business with you. Yeah. It's been very detrimental to my business to talk about this stuff publicly, but I cannot in good conscience not talk about this stuff because it's affecting our planet so heavily. Yes. When you look at all the problems that we have on this planet, most of them, if not all of them, are due to this ET influence, this negative reptilian ET influence on this planet and other ET influence. And fortunately now there are whistleblowers in the military and the industrial complex and also in the space programs that are coming out now and sharing the same information. And it's been very helpful to me because, these are people with high credentials. Paul Hellyer, the former Secretary of Defense of Canada, who's the man in charge of all branches of the military now, has come out saying that all these different countries, including the U.S. and Canada, not only have they had extraterrestrial contact, but the United States has ETs working for them in the Pentagon. And he says there are 2 that he knows of working in the Pentagon.
Yes.
You've got Bill Tompkins, who has come out on Gaia.com, and he's also come out with a book about working in the NASA space program and working with Nordic ETs and battling with reptilian ETs, and how the reptilian ETs have controlled this planet for thousands of years and mind controlled this planet for thousands of years, which is a pretty mind-blowing concept that we can talk about.
Yeah.
So increasingly there are more and more highly credentialed people coming out and talking about this stuff, and we have to factor it into our equations about whatever issues we have on this planet, because it is an overriding factor in everything. Just the simple fear-based reality that most people live in, that is coming from reptilians who have engineered this society to be fearful, to be warlike, so that when we developed technology to the level that we could go out into space, we could aid them with armies out in space to help them conquer other worlds. I mean, it's crazy.
Absolutely.
But there are people now, like I said, in the military and these space programs coming out and telling these stories more and more and more. Gaia.com is a fantastic resource for that. YouTube, Michael Salla, S-A-L-L-A, he's got books about all this stuff with all these different whistleblowers.
Yeah.
And even NASA itself now is coming out with disclosure on stuff, very quietly and very slowly.
The tides are changing. It's out. Disclosure's happening right now. And it's great because it's happening on all of those levels. And then the side that I'm on is more of the people level, where people are starting to feel comfortable speaking about it and acknowledging that they've had these experiences as the high levels come out. And so it's like together, then we're on the same playing field and then can understand that these things are happening and then work with the mind control, work with the new technologies in a really good way.
Exactly. And if you don't understand what's going on, you can't play the game.
Exactly.
You're just a pawn that's being manipulated. When you understand what's really going on this planet and you really understand the game, then you can play the game to win and be happy and healthy and abundant and not buy into the fear programming and all the other things that go with it.
So because of your encounters, I have 2 questions. One, how were they benevolent reptilians then that were working with you, are working with you?
Yeah, that's a good question. These particular ones were only because they were very different than the typical what people are calling Draco. I never was given labels. I was actually told by them not to label things because when you label something, you limit it and you limit your understanding of it. So I tend to shy away from labels. But these extraterrestrials and interdimensional beings of various kinds, you can't pin them down just like you can't pin human beings down. Are human beings evil or are they good? It depends on your perspective, and it depends on what human beings you're talking about. But these 4, what turned out to be 4 reptilians, there were 3 in this encounter, but there are 4 working with me, and others. But these particular 4 were very much rebels and very much more advanced than the other reptilians, much more aware, because they had been through unusual experiences, and they had encountered other extraterrestrials that had kind of taught them the error of the ways of their culture. Their culture is very fearful and warlike and dominating because of their birthing process and the way that they're raised. And this is something that they and other extraterrestrials have come to study, how humans birth their young and nurture their young, and how we live with our emotions, because these reptilians don't have emotions like we do. And most other ETs I've encountered don't have emotions like we do. And so the reptiles in particular, their birth, when a couple has fertilized eggs, those eggs are given to a communal nursery and they are hatched, but they are not given much support in their growth. And so just like a reptilian egg nest here on Earth, most of the babies wind up dying. They fight for their life in various ways when they come out.
Yeah.
And then they wind up, a lot of them get eaten and things like that. So the same kind of thing happens in these reptilian nurseries, where these babies are just given enough to survive, and then it's dog eat dog. They fight and compete over food sources and things like that in their upbringing. So the majority of them die, and the ones that survive value strength and conquering and competition and all that kind of stuff, because they have to in order to survive in their culture and their reality.
Right.
But some of these reptilians, and there are a lot of different reptilian species, but these ones that have been meddling on Earth the most, these Dracos as they're called, this is what's been going on with them. And you have to understand too that time is not the way that we perceive it. Time is actually simultaneous. And so these interdimensional beings, these reptilians and others, they're not just tied down to 3D reality, and they can pop in and out of time and do various things. And so some of the rebels in their society are working on improving their society by understanding human emotions and nurturing and incorporating that back into their birthing process. But it's a gargantuan task, just like here on Earth, shifting the consciousness of this planet is a big task. And it is happening, but it's been happening slowly and surely with help from other ETs and humans and all sorts. But when these reptiles started coming to Earth, they've been here for thousands of years. They've been manipulating our society for thousands of years. William Tompkins says that they've been here since the Stone Age, mind controlling the human population to make them fearful and competitive, so that when we developed high technology thousands of years later, we would be fearful and competitive, and then they could take somebody like a Hitler and use the resources, for example, of the U.S. government and the military to develop spacecraft and armies to help them fight out in space in exchange for being given high technology. And so that's what's been going on. And finally, these whistleblowers in the military are coming out and sharing this information, and people in the space program are sharing this information. And so what I've been talking about doesn't sound so nutty now in the light of these credentialed people, talking about it.
No, the more we can talk about it, the better. And with that kind of, once it becomes spoken, then there is this fear that comes up, I think, in people, from which is what they want in a way, like the Lushing, to take that in. So it's funny because the disclosure then actually creates more fear if you don't integrate it properly. So what are some tools that you have for like the whole mind control, and also when you understand that there's way more going on, then it can be in a way disempowering? What are some practical tools that you use to help buffer that and make it positive and shift to a more positive timeline?
Well, one of the reasons why I'm an optimist about all this stuff is because I've been shown over and over again by these various ETs that we're going to have a positive outcome.
Yeah.
We're already over the hump where the powers that be are not going to be able to continue the charade that's been going on here. So that gives me hope and upliftment, but also seeing the shift in consciousness. 20 years ago, when I was talking about this stuff publicly, almost nobody believed, and everybody ridiculed it and that kind of stuff. Now people not so much, and I encounter people I wouldn't imagine in a million years would be aware of this stuff that are aware of it now. So that gives me optimism. Mm-hmm. But what people can do specifically, the biggest thing that any of us can do in our growth and in our happiness is simply to let go of fear. And I say simply, it's not simple to do it because we've been so heavily programmed. But you let go of fear through healing work, through emotional healing, and through reprogramming self-destructive or limiting unconscious beliefs through techniques like meditation, like Vipassana meditation, for example, is one of my favorites. Yeah. You can go to these retreats and spend 10 days where you take a vow of silence and you meditate 12 hours a day, and that will rock your world, and it will expunge a lot of this fear and a lot of issues without even understanding how or why. It just does it.
Yeah.
So Vipassana meditation is a big one that I'm a fan of. Other types of meditation, Landmark education is another good one for, courses for releasing and dealing with your emotional issues all the way back to childhood. There's all kinds of therapies. There's even technologies like quantum biofeedback. Using that can help clear this stuff as well by sending scalar waves into the body to help neutralize the scalar signature in the body of emotional fear. And fear, human emotions are composed of superluminal light that travels faster than what we've been told is the speed of light. And so that type of energy can be used. There are technologies and there are techniques, ancient tried and true techniques, for using that energy to clear and heal the body and the emotions and the mind.
I like that, and it's really an integration. I liked that you brought up like the personal work, because you being a technology man, I'm like, oh, is he going to say, this, the scalar technology and such? And it's, yes, of course, using those technologies and doing the personal work, sitting there in Vipassana 12 hours a day, like meditating.
Right. There's no getting around doing the work yourself, because there's no more sophisticated technology in the universe than your own biology and consciousness. So it has to be the foundation. Food has to be a foundation. Doing the emotional work has to be a foundation. Meditation has to be a foundation. Doing the emotional clearing work and reprogramming limiting beliefs. We've all been programmed with these beliefs from not just society and our parents and all of our surroundings, but incidents that we have, foundational incidents that we have as young children. We get programmed into believing that reality is a certain way because of something that happened, when all it is our interpretation of that event. But we live our lives as if that interpretation is real when it's not. And so it's getting to understand that using these tried and true ancient techniques. Yoga is another great one. Body work, massage, Reiki, energetic work, any of these tried and true techniques, particularly using your own biology and your own mind and emotions, are the most powerful things. And then you have tools from nature. You've got foods, you've got juices, you have things like wheatgrass juice that can heal and release things. And then, you've got within these natural substances, you have monoatomic minerals, which are superconducting minerals that plug into the body, and they are the interface between consciousness and the physical body. So the more you heal and deal, and the more you detox your body and provide nutrients to it, the more you raise that superconductivity, and the stronger that interface between your consciousness and your physical body becomes. And then you become healthier, better looking, more compassionate, more empathetic, more psychic, etc., etc., and everything works better. Your bullshit meter becomes much stronger when your body and mind are clear and are operating properly. And that's what people have got to get to. We have to step out of victimhood and step out of this belief that somebody else controls our destiny and take responsibility for our destiny, and then manifest it consciously.
Yes. And I think it's something to the sensitives, because in a way, there's even a programming of like buffering, like building up even weight or whatever it is to buffer the energetics that are happening, because so many of us are so sensitive. And it really is the opposite. That's a victim mentality, where it's cleaning out the vessel. And this is what I've been working with Corey Good on, because that's what the Blue Avians and so many of the ETs, like the ETs are literally saying like detox your body, like on the physical level, which can kind of be interesting. It's like, well, no, aren't they saying to like become more non-physical? And it's like, no, start right in the physical. What are some good detox? Because you're like a master of detox and fermentations and everything you need to clear the vessel. What are some of your favorite ways to detox the body?
Well, one thing that's so important to understand is that everyone needs to be detoxing on a daily basis. You need to be getting nutrients into the body every day, dense nutrients, and then also detoxifiers. And unfortunately, even if you're buying organic food in the health food stores, that's not good enough. No. Just walking around breathing, you're breathing in several hundred chemicals at any given time. Like 70% of mercury in people's bodies actually comes from the air. It doesn't come from eating fish or whatever. So you've got to be detoxing on a daily basis, little by little, and then a couple of times a year doing some major detoxing over several weeks. And so What I do on a daily basis, I make a cocktail. Well, first of all, I get testing to see, exactly what my health status is, if I'm deficient in anything in particular, if there's any minerals I'm deficient in or whatever. And then I supplement with food-based supplements specifically for those. So, for example, minerals, there are a brand called Angstrom brand minerals that I like to take. They're 100% bioavailable because the particle sizes are very, very small. They're just a few atoms in a particle, which are known as angstrom particles. And then also these monoatomics, which are individual atoms of minerals. Those monoatomics are extremely regenerative and have a lot of really powerful effects if they're in the right form, if they're in natural forms. And then these angstrom minerals, these are all natural forms of minerals that are found in foods. And so the best way to get them is by growing food and feeding volcanic minerals and microbes and various things to your plants to allow them to assimilate high levels of these minerals so that you got highly mineralized food that's bioavailable. That's the best way to do it. You can also do it through fermentation. I've been teaching people this for years. You can make, ferments of whatever kind, krauts or effective microorganisms, brews, or whatever. There are various kefirs, water kefir I do, all kinds of stuff, kombucha, and I will throw in, for example, liquid sea minerals into them, or maybe shilajit, for example, which is a volcanic mineral from the Himalayas that's very high in these monoatomics. So I'll ferment things, fortify them to make up for what we're not getting in our food. I also sprout a lot, and so I use Ormus minerals on my sprouts. I foliar feed. I'll grow, for example, sunflower or different sprouts in trays of soil, and because they don't have time to absorb nutrients from the little bit of soil that they're in, you foliar feed them. So I foliar feed them a product called MyGrow Minerals that is an Ormus product. You can go to mygrowminerals.com, mygrowminerals.com, and get those. That's a really simple thing you can do. I also use a product called Humana Gold. It's Humanna, Humana Gold. I think it's humana-gold.com is a website, or it may be just humanagold.com. But those I'll take and feed to my plants. And then also here locally in my area, there's actually a plant nursery that has their own proprietary fertilizer mixture that creates a lot of Ormus in soil. And for those who are interested in getting it, the company is called Quality Green Specialists. They're in DeLand, Florida, DELAND. Quality Green Specialist, DeLand, Florida, and they have a product called 305, a soil amendment that is amazing for making Ormus in soil and getting huge plant growth. For example, I have a greenhouse. I use this stuff, and I've got ochre plants 7 or 8 feet tall. I have basil plants that are like bushes that are like 6 feet tall and just humongous. Yeah, and they're all nutrient dense. They're not some chemical abominations. But that's what we've got to get into us. We've got to get these nutrient dense foods back into our bodies, get these monoatomic elements back into our bodies. Yeah. So I do it by adding this stuff to ferments, adding sea minerals or other types of angstrom minerals or whatever to ferments. If, for example, if you're deficient, if you get, for example, a hair analysis or other kinds of fecal analysis that shows you're deficient in certain minerals, well, you can take the angstrom minerals and put them into your ferments, and then you'll get them fortified with those particular minerals. You can take them directly, of course, too, but putting them into ferments or feeding them to your foods is a great way to get them into your food without necessarily the inconvenience of taking a supplement.
Yeah.
So, and then there's, juicing, growing wheatgrass and juicing it, or green drinks, getting juice in and detoxing. But my tonics that I make, specifically, they have, the one that I do on a daily basis, it has Oxylent electrolytes, which is a product I sell. It has various angstrom minerals, usually calcium and magnesium, boron. I take bone-building minerals just because that's one of the main things that's affected by these lack of minerals. So I'll take angstrom minerals in it. I always take a probiotic. I take enzymes, digestive enzymes, and systemic enzymes. I'll take blue-green algae, Klamath Lake blue-green algae. There's a product called E3 Live. It's frozen blue-green algae. I take that every day. That's phenomenal for brain function.
It's great.
And one of my favorites that I am like fanatic about these days is hemp.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Specifically hemp paste. If you go to hemppaste.com, you can see this product called Holden's Hope hemp paste. Absolutely amazing stuff for everything. It's like a heal-all for everything. I've noticed since I've been taking it, my eyesight is getting better. I'm going to have to change the prescription on my glasses, actually, because my vision's getting better with it. This stuff is good for osteoporosis. It's good for cancer. It's good for brain function. I mean, it's good for everything. It's absolutely amazing. Unfortunately, because of the way things are structured on this planet, it's expensive. You know, it's like $160 for 2,000 milligrams of this stuff. But they do have 2-for-1 sales periodically, so I would check with the folks there at hemppaste.com and find out when they have a 2-for-1 sale. I buy it up when they have a 2-for-1 sale, and it's well worth it. The stuff's amazing.
And is it just like a highly concentrated hemp? Like, what is it exactly?
They take the whole plant, as opposed to, I've used hemp oils of various brands, and they're great, but they can't touch the hemp paste. They take the actual plant and they grind it up, and they cook it somehow. They call it carboxylation, and then they mix it with oils, and the oils deliver it better into the body. And I can say, you know, compared to hemp oils that I've used, it's far more powerful, and it's the least expensive way of getting it into your body.
Yeah.
The CBD in the hemp is what's doing the healing work, and the hemp paste has the highest concentration for the least amount of money that I've found.
Wow. Out
there. So I highly recommend that one.
I like that. Well, and as all of you guys are listening, like, Ken, when I hear him speak, it's like, okay, that's what I need to aim for, you know? Like, okay, the way I grow my food, and I'm putting, like, don't you put maybe not zeolites anymore, but like bentonite, like things to soak up the heavy metals at some point? I heard you saying that. Or at least you put in fermentation, like the probiotics into the soils as well?
Well, I spray my whole yard with beneficial microbes, and also we inject our soil with mycorrhiza, which are fungus spores that grow roots through the soil that break down toxins, and we'll spray our effective microorganisms, which will break down the toxins into non-toxic elements, including radioactive fallout. It'll make radioactive fallout non-radioactive and non-toxic. And that has been proven in Fukushima City. I've got a video of it on my website. If you go to radiationlinks.freshandalive.com, there's actually a video there, a YouTube video of a Japanese farmer in Fukushima City who has no measurable radiation on his soil and crops after spraying it with the effective microorganisms. When everybody else around him, all of the growers around him can't sell their produce because it's all radioactive.
Wow.
So it's been proven and it's been tested and measured over and over again, and well before Fukushima too. So that's what I do, and that's something I teach. I've been teaching this. I do public talks. There's YouTube videos of me talking about this stuff, how to get it out of the atmosphere, because I've developed technologies, and I know other people who have technologies that'll clear the nuclear fallout and the chemtrail pollution and other pollution out of the atmosphere. You can do it very simply with pyramids. Alexander Golod is a Russian physicist who's proven that. You know, he spent millions of dollars proving what pyramids can do to neutralize radioactivity, to enhance human and animal and plant growth, to enhance water, to enhance food production and agriculture, to neutralize radioactivity in the atmosphere, on and on and on. So this is how the beauty of it is. This very, very advanced technology, the most advanced technologies in the universe, appear to be the most fundamental or rudimentary. Yeah. And so that's why we've been told that the peoples that came before us were not as technologically advanced as us. The truth is, some of them were far beyond our technology, and it appears so simplistic that compared to our current complicated, complex technologies, we thought that they were simply Stone Age people, and in truth is, the more advanced you get technologically, the simpler things become.
Yes.
And so we can all do this stuff. We don't have to rely on some whiz-bang scientist or technology to help us and protect us and solve our problems. We can do it ourselves, very simply. And that's what I've been pointing out. People like Alexander Golod, Valery Uvarov, Dr. Samir Osmanagich. These are all pyramid scientists, and scalar physicists like Dr. Tom Bearden or Dr. Konstantin Meil from Germany. These people all are showing how folks can use these technologies very simply to enhance their lives, to keep themselves healthy and happy. And so, yeah, I mean, that's just for details. Check out my videos, check out my blog at freshandaliveblog.com. This is what we need to do, and it's simple stuff. It's not whiz-bang high-tech stuff.
And one of the primary things you're talking about is pyramid power and developing scalar wave, right?
Correct.
Could you talk about, because I know that a lot of people, especially in like this kind of new age world, like they've seen the copper pyramids and they're like, oh yay, like I need a copper pyramid, but they might not know why it actually works and if it should actually be copper. So do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because there's a really clear and appropriate way to create, whether it's like orgonite, orgone, pyramids, because people are doing it, but are you doing it correctly? And then what is it doing?
Yeah, and when you get the fundamental principles of it, then you can extrapolate from that, and you can do much more than just following what other people are saying. So let me give some fundamentals so people understand how this stuff works, and then how you can utilize it. You have to understand that the entire multiverse, this whole cosmos, is a giant multidimensional matter-energy system. And so just within the physical realms and the energetic realms, we have this system of energy that is superluminal light, light that goes faster than what we've been told is the speed of light many, many times. And this energy comes flying out of the centers of galaxies. When you look at galaxies, the plane of a galaxy is relatively flat, but in truth the energetic signature or the energetic field of a galaxy is a donut shape. It's a toroid. And so that energy comes flying out of the centers of galaxies. It's superluminal light. It's going so fast that it appears black to us. It appears invisible. And so scientists looking at this and measuring this, they call it dark energy and dark matter. But what it really is superluminal light, which that really is, to me, is God consciousness, because it has an intelligence behind it. It's not like just this dumb energy. It's this intelligent, loving energy that comes spiraling out of galaxies. And as it's coming out and spiraling, it's also branching as it goes. It's fractaling. So it's spiraling and fractaling, and it creates this web of energy that's going around through the universe in this toroidal shape. And all of the suns and planets in our cosmos are relays for this energy, because they have singularities or black holes at their centers. So all the planets and suns have black holes at their centers, and these act as interdimensional portals for this energy to spiral outward through this web of planets and suns. So this energy is coming from the very large planets and suns at the center of our galaxy, being relayed outward to us. And when it gets to us, it's coming down from our sun and up from the center of the Earth, because the Earth has a singularity at its center. And so this energy is radiating outward from these points. And so we are a part of this web of these black holes. The human body is a web of black holes as well. All of the acupuncture meridians in the body, what they are actually deposits all along the nervous system of these superconducting minerals, these ormus minerals. And that superconductivity creates a black hole. And in fact, every single atom in your body has got black holes in them, because the protons that make up the atoms in the body, those are also interdimensional portals. So you've got this web of these black holes throughout the cosmos, from the galactic scale on down to the subatomic scale, that this energy is flowing through. Hence these practices like Tai Chi and Qigong and Ayurveda, where you take energy in from above and down from below, and you visualize it and you do things with it within the body. It's because you're capturing that scalar energy, that God consciousness that's coming from the sun and coming from the earth, and you're bringing it into your body and running it through these interdimensional portals that we call the acupuncture meridians. Also, the brain neural pathways, they're loaded up with these superconducting elements. The pineal gland is loaded up with these superconducting elements. And the DNA. The DNA is a superconducting antenna that is the interface for this God consciousness. So all this interface, when you're doing these types of energy work and these meditations, you're bringing this energy into the body, and it can create and alter matter. That's what it does. This scalar wave energy that's flowing through the cosmos, that is what creates this physical universe, and it's consciousness that slows it down and coagulates it into our 3D reality. Mm-hmm. So when you understand that, and then you start looking at things like pyramids, pyramids are antenna for capturing this energy. And just like a radio antenna, you can tune them to different frequencies, you can make them out of different materials and make them different sizes, and they will capture this God consciousness, this scalar energy, and bring in frequencies. If they're tuned right, they'll bring in frequencies that have amazing capabilities for enhancing life and consciousness, for healing, for neutralizing radioactivity, for altering matter. For example, the Egyptian pyramids and other pyramids, it's been discovered now that, everybody was wondering how they could cut these giant stones and put them in place and have them, next to each other so closely you couldn't even get a human hair in between them. It's because they weren't cut slabs of stone. It's been discovered that they were actually cast. These blocks were cast like concrete, but because they have antennas, scalar energy, because it can modify matter, it would alter the atomic structure of the cast concrete and make it appear like stone at the atomic level. So we can do the same thing. We can take pyramids, we can put them out in our backyards, we can clear chemtrails with them, we can enhance plant growth around us, we can, for example, reduce mold and mildew. With pyramids, you can enhance the lifespan of foods, you can increase plant growth, you can increase nutrient levels in plants you're growing around them, you can accelerate healing with them, you can enhance meditation with them, you can increase the nutrient levels in ferments with them. So if you're fermenting foods inside of pyramids, then you're going to get enhanced nutrient levels in them. So there's a lot that we can do with this stuff, but it's important to understand that not only are pyramids these antennas for this, but we ourselves are antennas for this energy, this God consciousness. So we really are the hands of God, so to speak, because we are receptacles or antennas for this God consciousness that's flowing through everything. And this energy is multidimensional. It's not just three-dimensional. It travels through different frequencies or dimensions of time and space. And it passes through matter like it's not even there, because when you look at what matter really is, and you start looking at atoms, atoms are mostly empty space. When you look at the nucleus of an atom, if you take, for example, a hydrogen atom and you blow it up to the size of a football field, the nucleus is going to be about the size of a golf ball, and the electron spinning around it is going to be about the size of a pea 100 yards away. So there's mostly empty space there. And this scalar energy that's flowing through everything, it's passing through matter by going through the space within the subatomic particles. And that's how it can alter matter and how it manifests within matter. The human body does this all the time. When cells regenerate, that's what they're doing. They're actually sending scalar wave signals through superconducting minerals in the body and in the cells back in time to get the pattern for healthy cells and bring it into the present. That's how you can heal DNA. That's how you can heal genetic damage, because the genetic blueprint is not in the DNA as we've been told. The DNA is actually the antenna for the genetic blueprint. It's the interface that brings the blueprint into physical manifestation, but the actual blueprint is in consciousness itself, and it can't be destroyed. And that is why genetically modified plants, for example, or animals, they actually can revert their DNA back to the original DNA that's non-modified over time, simply by raising the superconductivity in the body. And so that's one of the reasons why it's so important to be growing and making our own nutrient-dense foods and ferments to get this superconductivity back into the body, to raise it so that whatever genetic modification is going on, we'll just destroy it. We'll reverse it. Mm-hmm. And this has been done. It's been proven over and over again. This is not just like conjecture. This has been done. I've done it. I've showed people how to do it. You can revert GMO plants simply by feeding them enormous minerals.
So it's really the non-linear scalar energy, because it's going back to the original source, and it's going back to the source of whatever its most balanced, kind of like godlike state of whatever that thing is.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
The perfect pattern for everything is in consciousness.
Yeah.
And, you know, consciousness can alter that when it's coming into the physical form, which is what's going on. That's why there's been so much effort put into keeping this planet in fear and keeping people in very, very limited understandings of the reality, so that they will manifest what the powers that be want. But the more that you understand about this, the more you raise the superconductivity, the more you do emotional clearing and healing and deal with your stuff, the less you can be controlled and manipulated, and then the easier it is to see through all of that.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
It's been really fun, because I got your pyramid, and describe what it is, the sleep aid pyramid.
Okay. It's called the Rest Shield, and it's a powered scalar wave generator. I was studying Nikola Tesla's work and George Lakhovsky and Nikolai Kozyrev and all these different scalar physicists and Tesla, of course, and started realizing Tesla developed this thing called a personal oscillator, and so I figured out how to recreate what he had done with digital circuits, and so I developed a little device that I call the Stress Shield. That it's a portable device, and that was my initial foray into this, and found it got me into really deep sleep. And also I started noticing that there were a lot of synchronicities that started occurring in my life with this thing. And I came to realize over time that the scalar waves that this thing were putting out, they were of a frequency that would, I believe, act as carrier waves for our brain waves, which are scalar energy.
Yeah.
You know, the thoughts that we put out, the emotions that we put out, is scalar energy, the superluminal light. We are light beings. And so this device seemed to act as a carrier wave for our own consciousness, and it would accelerate manifestation of thought into reality. But it didn't accelerate manifestation of negative things, only the positive, because of the frequency that it operated at. And so that evolved into, you know, I was studying pyramids and things, and also being very guided. And so I wound up developing this pyramid that has a scalar wave antenna embedded in it, and then that's powered by a circuit that generates scalar waves. So it's much, much more powerful than a static pyramid. A static pyramid, as I mentioned, is an antenna that captures the scalar energy that's flowing through us all the time and brings it into form. But typically, it takes a pretty good sized pyramid, or you have to have very special materials to capture a decent amount to have much of an effect.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're generating scalar waves with an electric circuit, it's much, much more powerful. And so that device we found, you know, initially it was developed for sleep, but we found that it also enhances plant growth, because plants actually, they are energy to matter converters, and they take scalar energy and convert it directly into matter. And so we've done experiments where we've seen plants, for example, we had an avocado, actually it was a client of mine who had an avocado seed sitting in a glass of water, and she left for 2 weeks, came back, and the avocado seed grew into a 2-foot tall plant in this glass of water. But the interesting thing was the water level was the same. It didn't go down. And so what I surmised from that is that plants take this scalar energy coming from the cosmos, coming from our sun, coming from the earth, and convert it directly into matter. And that's why you have, for example, you know, when you take a small acorn, you put it in the ground, you get this giant oak tree with a huge amount of mass. That mass isn't being converted from minerals in the soil, otherwise you'd have a giant hole in the ground. It's converting scalar waves, which is photonic light, but superluminal light, into the matter. And so so that's, you know, we found other benefits with it. The device protects against EMF, because the field that it puts out, it pulses at a certain frequency, and it has certain resonant frequencies, so it will structure conventional electromagnetic radiation or EM pollution and make all the waves become parallel to each other. Normally, you know, if you think about it, you turn on a radio or television, you can pick up radio waves and TV channels and things. It's because this energy is around us all the time. Radar gun energy, it's bouncing around all the time. But if you have a scalar field around you of the right frequency, when those waves from all these different directions come and hit that field, they all become parallel to each other. That's called coherence. So when these waves become coherent, when they pass through the body, they interfere with cellular communication much, much less. Yeah. And so the impacts of EMF pollution are radically reduced by this device and devices like that. So that's one of the benefits we found from it. And then there are other applications that I wound up developing. I discovered that if I made it larger and stronger and weatherproof, that we could clear chemtrails with it, and we could also clear nuclear fallout with it, and not drop it back down onto Earth, but actually send it out into space where it would not affect us. And so, and there are other people doing this. Alexander Golod, the Russian physicist, is doing this with pyramids, and other people are doing this stuff with various technologies. And unfortunately, our illustrious government and other governments are using the same technology for warfare and for weather modification and manipulation of weather, and betting on weather through weather futures and like stocks. It's just crazy what's going on with it.
Yeah, and I feel like it's really important for people to understand like how close to home. Like as we're talking about this, you're probably on a computer or you're probably on your phone watching this. And there's probably at least 20 Wi-Fi signals, if you're in a city, running through you at any given time, and the 5G cell tower like up the street. And it's like, this is, okay, so we're saying what it's doing, so now get a hold of something, like create your own pyramid, get one of Ken's, something so that you're protected, but also so that you're staying in your own natural, genetic, pure field and not having this stuff run through you. And for me, I'm in the middle of nowhere in Sedona. We can't even get cell service. There's like one neighbor's Wi-Fi that's like, one bar. So, I mean, it's not that bad, but the reason I got the pyramid is because we started an Airbnb, and so now we have to have Wi-Fi on 24/7 because that's what people demand. And I'm like, oh no, like I can't do this. And it was really affecting my sleep, just even one Wi-Fi signal, because I've gotten sensitive to it. And I got the pyramid, and I was able to sleep there deeply. And as you said with the pyramid, the first few nights, if you haven't kind of caught up on the sleep and gone to the deep brainwave levels, then you need like deep rejuvenation, which happened. And then the other cool thing that happened, which I started doing a Qigong, 100-day Qigong practice, like 2 hours a day of the microcosmic orbit, which is actually working with pyramidal energies, I figured out, because you're using the pyramid going down, you're using the pyramid going up from the ground. So I'm doing this with the pyramid, and my plants in my room are just like, they're just going crazy. So whatever the combination is, the scalar energy, taking it from technologies around you and cultivating it in yourself is just super powerful. And the other piece that I wanted to ask you about, because I've heard David Wilcock did, I think, like 3 episodes on pyramid power, and he was talking about how it increases your karma, like it brings your stuff up. And for me, being in power spots like in Sedona, if the scalar energies reverting you back to your natural core energy, then obviously anything that's egoic and in the way is going to have to move aside. But the thing which has happened to me over the past few years in Sedona, it's just like, move through your stuff. But with this pyramid, though, the one that you made, it hasn't been bringing up negativity like you were saying. It's been like smoother, actually. What is it in that pyramid that's doing that versus like other, even like natural vortex energies that bring up kind of the other energies too?
Well, it's because the pyramid is made with a lot of natural minerals. It's got like 18 different minerals in it that all have natural frequencies. Crystals and minerals are crystalline. And so all crystals are oscillators. You can, I mean, this is well known in conventional physics and engineering. It's used in electronics all the time, sending energy through a crystal and changing its frequency. So these minerals are all selected for frequencies that de-stress and relax living organisms, no matter whether it's a bacteria or a human being or a plant or an animal. And then the device pulses overall at 7.83 hertz, which is known as the Schumann resonance, which is a frequency that's supposed to be in the Earth's atmosphere, but now is about double of what it should be. So we're all being stressed at a subtle level by the accelerated Schumann resonance, and it is not part of natural human ascension for those people who are believing that. All you've got to do is put any living organism within the original Schumann resonance of 7.83, and you will see that they immediately become healthier, and all of their vital signs become better. So these natural mineral frequencies, the resonant frequencies, all of them combined, in addition to the Schumann pulse that this thing puts out, and the fact that it's a true scalar device. There was a man named Bob Boyd, who was a really brilliant scientist, who had a device that could detect whether energy was truly scalar or if it was just non-Hertzian or conventional electromagnetic energy, and he measured on my device and said it was a true scalar device. Wow. Which a lot of these devices out on the market that are claiming to be really aren't. So the fact that it's a true scalar wave, which is what your own brain waves are, and it's operating at those frequencies that are harmonious to living organisms and in fact soothing to living organisms, those act as carrier waves for your brain waves, and they only resonate with the beneficial, uplifting, harmonious frequencies, not the negative frequencies. So it tends to keep you out of fear, and it also tends, well, it won't manifest fearful ideas and concepts that you may be hanging on to. And so that's why it tends to smooth things out. And you know, I saw David Wilcock make that comment about the more that you deal with your stuff, the more intense things get, and that's only true to a certain point. You know, once you've done the healing and dealing and you've done a lot of that work and you clear that stuff, then it becomes less and less of a factor in your life.
Yeah.
And the more that you let go of fear, when you truly, truly let go of fear, the more magical and easy life becomes. Yeah. And so it's not like that it's a never-ending process of, oh my God, another healing crisis or whatever.
Right.
Like, no, fortunately, I've been through a lot of that stuff. I had a lot of healing I had to do. But, you know, a lot of it was very, very difficult. But now, you know, as I'm older, I've done a lot of stuff. Life's a lot easier than it was in the past.
Yeah. I think that that's an important note because I think part of the ego fixation or the mind control, whatever you want to call it, it's like, it's saying there's going to be another healing crisis. And at a certain point, one of the most profound things is to be like, nope, I'm okay. Like, I choose to be okay.
Well, you know, there's a Nobel Prize-winning physicist named Ilya Prigogine who figured out and labeled what is now being called chaos theory, and he wrote a book called Order Out of Chaos. And one of the things he pointed out is that all living organisms are what are called open systems, and so they always go through cycles of chaos, and then they reorganize into a higher order of equilibrium, and then they'll stay at equilibrium for a while, but then they have to grow, so then they'll step into chaos again. So all life for all living organisms is nothing but a cycle of chaos and equilibrium. So if you understand that, if you understand more about the nature of your reality, then it's much easier to be accepting when things are in chaos. I mean, you know, running a business, for example, every couple of years we have to go through a growth process and we step into chaos. And I embrace it. It doesn't bother me one bit, but I can see if I wasn't guiding my staff the way I do, they would be very stressed out. And not because they have so much work to do, but it's just because there's a lot of change going on.
Yeah.
But when you understand that that's just a natural process, you go, okay, well, this is part of the chaos change, you know, and you keep moving on. And then you get to have a little equilibrium for a while and, you know, relax for a bit, but eventually you wind up getting bored with it, and then you step into chaos again. So, you know, the more you understand it, the more healing and dealing you've done, the easier all that becomes.
Absolutely. So before we move outside of pyramids, I want to talk about the extinct flowers that came back, because to me, that's a really big sign of hope to, if the scalar energy can revert plants' energies back to their natural form, does that mean that it can pretty much heal the world back to its natural state? And like, what is the kind of the evidence with those flowers coming back?
Yeah, what you're referring to is Alexander Golod, the Russian physicist, he built a 144-foot high pyramid outside of Russia, and you can actually see it on YouTube, and also in my presentations on YouTube. And Golod found out, well, they had a lot of amazing discoveries. They discovered, because he's a high up military officer in the Russian military, he had a multi-million-dollar annual budget, so he had a lot of money to spend to experiment with these things. And fortunately for us, he was looking at beneficial and benevolent uses of these things. And he discovered, for example, that this pyramid would neutralize radioactivity in the atmosphere and in the ground, in groundwater, for hundreds of kilometers around. It would increase the well, it started popping up springs for many miles around it, because spring water is actually, it's these superconducting minerals in spring water down under the ground. They're levitational, they're anti-gravitational, and they levitate the water to the surface. So when you put a pyramid in place, it increases that
levitation quality,
levitation property. And so what winds up happening is you start seeing more springs popping up where they weren't existing before, because that water is being levitated up more strongly. So they observed that, and many other things. Accelerated healing. People go inside of these pyramids and they get healed of major diseases. They can put crystals inside these pyramids and charge them, and then they can send them to people, and people can sit with the crystals and get healed. On and on and on, stuff like that. But the most interesting one to me was that Golod discovered there were these flowers growing in the fields around his large pyramid that no one had ever seen before. So he called a botanist in to have them identified, and they discovered that those flowers have been extinct for millions of years on Earth. And so he theorized that the pyramid was bringing in the pattern for these flowers from the quantum field, or what some people might call the Akashic records. And he believed that the pattern for everything that ever has existed or ever will exist is out there in the energetic field, and these pyramids can bring them back into form. And since the discovery of those flowers, I understand they've also discovered, I think, 3 different types of ancient ferns that have been extinct for millions of years that have also come back.
Wow. So
that gives me hope that, we could bring back extinct species that humans have destroyed potentially. So it's pretty mind-blowing what these things can do. And it also shatters our understanding of matter and energy and the concepts that we've been taught in science and engineering. It's like what I was taught in engineering school. It's mostly wrong.
Right.
Fundamentally flawed. And it's been intentionally kept that way. We've been intentionally kept away from this physics, this greater understanding. It's been known by the powers that be on this planet for thousands of years. It was given to them by extraterrestrials. And it's got to get back out to the mainstream so that we can solve these problems that we have on our planet.
And so, speaking of that, with the pyramids, I know that you're developing a course of how to build your own pyramid. Is that true? Is it in production?
It's true. I've taught the class in person for years. I taught it in Sedona a few years ago.
Yeah, my dad went to it. He loved it.
Okay.
Yeah, he came home. He's like, we how to build a pyramid. It's great.
Yeah, you don't have to build gigantic pyramids. You can build little 6-inch pyramids if you make them out of the right materials, and you can clear chemtrails and nuclear fallout and enhance plant growth and protect yourself against EMF and all kinds of stuff. And so, I've been teaching that, and I've had so much demand for it. I want to create a video of it where people all over the world can access it. So that is in the works. I've got, so many different projects going on, and, so many people wanting me to do things. So that's on my to-do list, and I intend to get it out by early 2017, as well as a couple of new technologies.
Okay, well, we'll stay tuned for those. And last, because we've got a little bit more time, to speak on sacred sites. So tell me about, are they pretty much just creating scalar waves naturally, like through the granite mountain ranges, these certain places? What are the sacred sites doing on a very practical, physical level to make this accelerative spiritual energy present?
Okay, sacred sites typically, whether they're naturally made or man-made or other, they're typically, what they really are scalar wave antenna sites or vortex sites, if you want to call them that. They capture this energy coming from the center of the earth and coming from the sun, and then create a localized field that will enhance things. And so there's actually a book, for people that kind of want to see some hard scientific validation of this, there's a book called Seed of Knowledge, Stone of Plenty. It's about a scientist who went around to thousands of sacred sites all across the world and took scientific measurements of the energies on them, discovering, that, for example, many of them generate, like pyramids will generate electricity, sometimes high amounts of electricity. They will generate different kinds of fields, and they will have various measurable effects that can be measured with conventional science. So that's a good book to kind of reference. But in my experience, because I've actually created some of these sites that are vortex sites, and people like Drumbelow Melchizedek have done so as well with his Flower of Life workshops, going in. And native people around the world have been doing this as well. I know there were some South American natives who came up to the United States, and they were creating sites with pyramids. But what they are, from what I've seen, is however they're constructed, or if they're natural, like in the case of Sedona, you've got very huge underground crystal formations there that create an antenna underground for this energy coming from the earth and the sun, that then creates this large scalar field of natural frequencies, which is why Sedona attracts such high consciousness there. So, so you've got these sites that are natural sites like that, and then you've got human or other made sites where, you've got basically a scalar wave antenna of some sort that is capturing this energy and then creating a localized field. In that book, Seed of Knowledge, Stone of Plenty, the scientist mentions in his research that his observation was that a lot of these ancient cultures would build these sites when their food supply started getting outstripped. Usually what would happen is there would be a small village that eventually would grow into a large city, and because of the way they were doing agriculture, they would just go hunt and gather and strip the surrounding forests and lands of all the food. So ultimately they had to put these scalar devices in place to increase the growth of plants and agriculture in the areas to support their growing populations. So that's one motivation for them, but it's not the only motivation. You can create Ormus elements, for example. The Temple of Solomon, which, conventional archaeologists will say that the Temple of Solomon in the Middle East was a temple. Well, turns out there are other people that are discovering what it really was a facility for manufacturing monoatomic elements, or Ormus gold, which can be used for a huge variety of things, including warfare.
Yeah.
And that the ancients, got this technology. They got Ark of the Covenant technology and other scalar technologies, and were creating monoatomic gold for various purposes in these kinds of facilities. And it makes a lot more sense than what we've been told by conventional archaeology, because Solomon's temple was way out in the middle of nowhere. It wasn't near human settlements. It was way out in the middle of nowhere. And so the more you understand about all this stuff, and the more you start seeing and understanding these sacred sites. Samir Osmaganic, for example, who discovered the largest pyramids in the world in Bosnia, these things are so big that nobody recognized what they were. They thought they were mountains,
right?
Because they were covered with grass and trees, but he's uncovering that they're these giant pyramids. And I've been in communication with him a little bit, and he's shown me some of the discoveries they've made there, and I'm seeing the same things there that we're seeing in other places around the world, including other pyramid complexes and sacred sites.
Yeah.
That these ancient peoples made these pyramids, they made these flow forms and rivers and all kinds of things out of cast and stone, concrete-like stone, which then solidified and became altered to look like real stone because of the scalar wave activity in the area. And so a lot of these sites that people are looking at and wondering, like Machu Picchu with all the stones, tightly interlocked together of different sizes and shapes, and wondering how is this possible. When you start to understand scalar physics, then it explains these sacred sites of how they're made and how the scalar energy that they generate have altered their structure molecularly and atomically, and also how they continue to produce harmonic frequencies of scalar energy that are beneficial to living organisms. And so you can do the same thing in your backyard. You know, you can create an obelisk or a pyramid in your backyard out of stuff from Home Depot. You know, you don't even have to, you know, make it out of heavy rock or anything. You can just take some plastic, PVC, and, you know, plastic sheeting and make a pyramid in your backyard out of that. And it works just as well as a big, heavy stone pyramid.
And one of the reasons that you had said that it decreases natural disasters or hurricanes or earthquakes too. So that's one of the reasons that these ancient peoples did that, and it's been helpful for you too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you know, Alexander Golod proved that. He showed what was going on with this. When you send a scalar wave vortex from a pyramid up into the atmosphere, it acts like a vacuum cleaner. It actually creates an upside down tornado of scalar waves that act like a vacuum cleaner for pollution, and it only pulls pollution out. It doesn't harm the atmosphere. It actually cleans up the atmosphere by sucking all of this pollution out into space, or neutralizing it if it's strong enough. And so, yeah, so I've done this. I've created devices that will do this, and other people have. And when you put them in place, what you see is you get a balancing of the weather. You get normal weather for your area because it clears the pollution out of the atmosphere that alters the ionization of the atmosphere. You know, normally we've got so much pollution up in the atmosphere, it creates all these charged particles that throw the weather off and create weather extremes. And then when you add on top of that geoengineering, which is dumping, you know, fine metal powders into the atmosphere, that just wreaks absolute havoc on the atmosphere. And, you know, militaries around the world are doing that for weather modification for warfare purposes. And so there is no natural weather on this planet anymore because of all this. And when you build these devices and you clear this stuff out of the atmosphere, then yeah, you get normal weather. Hurricanes that come toward you either fall apart or they bounce off, they weaken and bounce off. You know, we've seen this over and over again. Golod has seen this. Other people have seen this. Also, seismic activity. Golod showed that earthquakes were reduced because what happens is when you've got these devices emanating this energy, it causes the tectonic releases to happen little by little all the time rather than waiting for big buildups. So you don't get major earthquakes when you've got these kinds of devices. So hint, hint, people in California or wherever, start building pyramids. Yeah, and you will notice that you'll see a diminishing of this stuff. So there's very real and practical things you can do with some really simple stuff from, you know, Home Depot and eBay. Very powerful stuff.
And what would you say about stone circles? Because I was at a Druid stone circle in northern Wales over the summer, and I laid in the middle, and I didn't really have expectations, though when I walked into the fields, I definitely felt the field shift. But I was laying in the middle, just meditating, and I started to wobble, like physical, like I could feel a physical like wobbling of energy, and to where I could almost like dematerialize, or like there was definitely a time-space shift happening. What's happening with stone circles?
Well, if you think about it, when you create any kind of a structure that's high in these monoatomic minerals, or it's an electrical non-conductor, so for example, volcanic rock, or plastic or wood, or anything that's an electrical non-conductor, when you create these certain structures, what they're doing is acting as an antenna for this energy that's coming from the center of the earth and from the sun. And so in the case of these, whether they're obelisks or circles like Stonehenge, they're made out of high Ormus stone. They're made out of stone that's high in the superconducting elements, and they create a vortex. They create a scalar wave vortex. And depending on how they're structured and the frequency of the vortex, it may have different effects. It may clear pollution. It may enhance meditation. It may be a teleportation device. It may be an interstellar communication device. You know, imagine if you're on a planet where you've got one of these things and your buddies back home who live many light years away on another planet have one, and you sit and meditate and project your consciousness to them, they can receive it. You know, this scalar energy is what physicists call non-local, so it doesn't traverse through space like a spaceship traveling through space. It just blinks out here and shows up somewhere else. And so this is being shown increasingly. There's actually a German company working on a scalar cell phone that would have perfect clarity anywhere in the cosmos, no matter how far apart, because it's using non-local scalar waves as opposed to conventional transverse electromagnetic waves. So these, whether it's a circle or one of the reasons why, by the way, why ancient people have always gotten together in ceremony in circles is because one individual person is a scalar wave antenna. Our brains are the transceiver that picks up this God consciousness flowing through the cosmos and then relays it through the nervous system and through the DNA outward to create this toroidal field around us. So individually, we are scalar wave transmitters and receivers that create this field, and this field of scalar waves or the scalar energy field and the waves that we put out, they actually attract. This are the reality that we create. This is how we alter matter and energy and attract and create our reality. So when you get together in ceremony with people in a group, particularly in a circle, you're taking your scalar vortex and combining with others to create a much larger one, and that will accelerate manifestation of whatever thought is that you're putting out. And that's why people throughout time have gotten together in ceremony, whether it's a sweat lodge or a fire circle or whatever, and done ceremony in circles. Because, and if you've ever done a sweat lodge or something like that, it's like the moment you agree to do it, your life starts accelerating.
Yes. And
things change quick.
Yes, they do.
When you do a ceremony. So that's the idea behind that. And when we understand that, we can optimize that. It's like if you're going to do a sweat lodge, do it with a certain number of people. Do it, arrange the geometry of the sweat lodge in a certain way. Study David Wilcock's work on wisdom teachings on Gaiam.com, and you can learn all about the geometry behind this stuff. And you can enhance what you're doing. And then ultimately, what it's really all about is just having a happy life. It's about being happy.
Yeah.
And so the more healing and dealing and clearing and stuff you do with all this stuff, then life just becomes much more effortless and much more enjoyable, and the fear goes away, and it's just a hell of a lot more fun.
I like that.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's what we're going for with all of these different permission slips and tools. It's like, come back to just cultivating happiness, right?
Yeah, these ancient sites were used for a lot of different reasons. Michael Telliger, for example, from South Africa, is showing how there are thousands of these sacred sites all across southern Africa that were used as communication devices for interdimensional extraterrestrials that were here on Earth, and for other purposes as well. So, you can use them, for example, to store food and make food last longer. Patrick Flanagan showed that with his book Pyramid Power.
Yeah.
And others have proven it over and over again now. A lot of the stuff that Patrick wrote about in the 60s in Pyramid Power, a lot of conventional scientists poo-pooed it, but now there are conventional scientists who have proven it over and over again that it's valid.
Wow.
So, so the more you learn about this stuff, you don't have to get into all the physics or the details of it, but when you understand conceptually how this stuff works, you can use these simple tried and true methods of, breath work, meditation, Reiki, Qigong, Tai Chi, Ayurveda, food and herbs, bring the ormus into the food and herbs, make it even better, bring the ormus into your body, these ormus elements, these minerals. Everything becomes a lot easier and a lot more fun.
Yes. And with that, I have one last question to end on a fun, happy note. What's your favorite food? Because I love your cooking shows. You do a few demos on your YouTube channel of awesome stuff that you're dehydrating and such. What's your favorite thing to make or to eat? Because we eat different. I mean, I'm pretty much vegan raw foodist.
That's a tough one. I mean, I'm a lifelong chocoholic, so that's a major one there. And I don't eat that much chocolate, but I love it. I actually, when David Wolfe years ago, I got off of chocolate in my late 20s. And then I heard David Wolfe talking about, chocolate was high in monoatomic gold years ago. So I jumped on his chocolate, got some of his chocolate. And, the way he talked about it, he made it sound like he was sitting around eating bowls of cacao. So when I first got some cacao nibs, I sat down with a bowl of cacao nibs, and I ate 2 cups of cacao nibs mixed in with some coconut, and oh my God, I had a religious experience with it. He was right, it is high in monoatomic gold, but it lit me up like a church, and I had like my pineal gland open up, and I was seeing all this stuff. I was seeing patterns and things I'd never seen before. I was seeing vistas of the future and solutions for everything. And of course, there's a lot of caffeine in cacao, so I wound up staying awake for like 48 hours. I was buzzing for about 5 days, but my mind and my brain worked so much better for like 5 days. Had a really amazing experience with it, but it showed me, the power of what you can do with cacao. And also, so I wound up getting onto that. I wound up eating like over a few years, 200 pounds of cacao.
Whoa.
So I've done cacao quite a bit, and now, because of all of that, I've come to realize like it is definitely not a superfood. It's a stimulant, and it can have beneficial effects, but also it exhausts the glands.
Yeah.
The endocrine glands. So it's not really a superfood. It can have benefits for sure, especially when you're doing ceremonies and things. But
in moderation.
So I would say chocolate's one of my favorites. But I don't sit around making it or eating a lot of it. But I mean, I don't necessarily have any particular one food. It's like I'll go through phases where I'm like I can't get enough tabbouleh. I'll make like we'll grow our own parsley, and I just can't get enough tabbouleh, and I'll just be eating the heck out of tabbouleh for a while. But in general, I eat a lot of different stuff. I like variety.
Yeah, that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that about you and cacao. That's great.
Oh yeah. I told David about it. He got a laugh out of it because it was like, boom. I invited some friends over. I was so hyped. After about an hour, I was like, super frenetic. I called some friends and were like, oh my God, you got to come over and do some cacao. And so these people came over, and I didn't want to give them the amount that I took because I didn't want them staying awake for God knows how long. But one of them was a coffee drinker, and she ate about a half a cup of it, and she was not impressed. And the other lady was a psychic, and when she saw how jazzed I was, she didn't want to have anything to do with it. So.
Well, speaking of that, it's a good way to get off of coffee. I've noticed, because we've had some, cleansing different retreats, and people stop drinking coffee at our house, and I'm like, you don't have to stop drinking coffee here. But then once they have, some cacao, it can take you off of the coffee. So that's a good solution.
Absolutely, it is, and that's how, when I used to do individual consults, that's exactly how I'd get people off coffee, because usually, particularly if they've been long-time drinkers, they'll get migraines and headaches. So, yeah, you put them on chocolate smoothies for a few weeks, and then they get them off the coffee, and then they can get off the chocolate.
Right. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, So please share your websites and how people can find you so that they can connect.
Well, my main website is freshandalive.com, and my blog, where most of my educational information is and interviews and things like that, is at freshandaliveblog.com. And then I'm on Facebook as well. And, I do different events from time to time and webinars and things. I'm going to be doing more online events in the coming months because I want to travel less to get more things done here locally. So I'll be doing more online events, which will be good because then people all over the world can access some of these things that I've only done live in person.
Yes.
I'm always posting stuff on Facebook that some of the latest stuff that I encounter. So Facebook's a good place to check me out as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for connecting with me, connecting with all of us, everyone that's going to watch this. And I just love everything that you're doing, everything that you are. So just keep up the good work.
Well, thanks, Bridget. It's my pleasure. It's been a great joy just to speak with you.
Awesome. Well, so if you like videos like this, please like, subscribe, and share with all your friends. Spread the news because this is amazing, awesome information. And I'll see you next Tuesday with a new video.